Welcome to this week's Four Piece Podcast. Today we have someone on our show who, after interviewing him, I was just absolutely amazed with the insight that he gives about mindset. You know, I'm going to give you one of my fears, and it's an irrational fear. It's a phobia, obviously. I am afraid of bats. I freaking hate bats. And I almost said a really bad word right there when it comes to bats. I just don't like them. I hate them, whatever. Living in Indiana for a little while. And okay, even in Buffalo. So Buffalo, I didn't see them. Okay, I didn't see bats. There are bats in Buffalo, New York. Definitely. But in Indiana, they're a little bit more. They're a little bit more frequent. You see them frequently, and especially at certain times of night, you'll see 5, 6, 7 at a time just flying around. And I don't know what it is about bats. I don't know if it's just like and it is. It's a phobia. Like I said, I don't know if I'm afraid of rabies or something like that. I know when I was a kid, there was a story that I saw on the news, and it did happen. Honestly, it happened in Buffalo, but it was a guy that had a bat that went into his attic or somewhere in his house, and it bit him and gave him rabies. So, and I was young enough to realize that really did play a part in me. Then, going to Sydney, which I'll be in Sydney here in a few days from this podcast release, there are bats that are in downtown Sydney that are freaking huge, man. I mean, they are big, and they don't do anything to you. As a matter of fact, they look graceful, but they literally fly. For those of you who do not live in Sydney, they actually literally cast shadows on the sidewalk. That is how I found out those bats exist, because I saw the shadow on a sidewalk at night and looked up and just saw like friggin' Batman. I mean, it was a big little bat, big friggin' bat. But they don't swoop and fly. They just fly a straight line, which is good. The bats here in the United States are small, and they just, do all this stuff, and I can't stand it because, number one, you can't catch them or whatever. And like sometimes, like when I ride my bike or do something at dusk or at dawn, those stupid things are flying overhead, and I just hate them. I'm just afraid of them. But when you hear and he doesn't talk about bats, I'm talking about bats, but when you hear Chris Harris, who's on our podcast today, you're going to find out that a lot of things are just in the mind. And there's a gatekeeper is there that, he finds a way for you to get around that gatekeeper or that bouncer, so to speak. When we come back, we will have Chris Harris, again, talking about mindset. We'll be right back right after this.
Some fathers teach you how to stand tall. Others teach you how to survive. In Lessons from My Father, Dr. Trunnis Goggins II confronts the legacy of a powerful, complicated man and the truths no one talks about. This is a story of discipline and damage, loyalty and fear, love that left scars. Because sometimes the hardest lesson is understanding the man who made you. Lessons from My Father. Available now on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and anywhere you buy books.
Welcome back to the Four Piece Podcast. Today, I have a phenomenal guest on this program. And today I'm wearing a Buffalo Sabres hoodie today. Is a military hoodie because obviously you guys know that I was in the military. I was in the Navy. And today I have someone who is a brother in arms. He was in the United States Air Force quite a while ago. And I say quite a while ago, and because I know mine is like, I can't believe I've been out of the military longer than I was in the military at this point in time in my life. So it's we're at that point in time. Chris Harris, all the way from Fort Worth, Texas. However, he's originally from the Ohio area. Which part of Ohio are you from, Chris?
Dayton, Ohio.
Dayton, Ohio.
Where everybody worked for General Motors at the factory.
And that's what I was going to ask you. I'm sure you have some General Motors stories, right?
Yep. You could always tell how General Motors sales were going by the billboards off Highway 75 and Highway 70. If the billboards were for new GM cars or new Chevys, you knew times were good. And if the billboards all got changed for beer, Budweiser billboards, you knew times were bad.
Absolutely. You know, I was in Indianapolis for a little while, and when I lived in Indianapolis, my kids used to have hockey tournaments in Dayton, and there were a couple of really nice rinks in the Dayton area. Dayton, Ohio, is a very nice. It's a very nice town. It is. It is very. Let's say it is very. I'm going to say it is a deceptive town in the fact of the things there are to do in Dayton. There are quite a bit of things to do in Dayton. One thing that I do love about Dayton is the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base is not too far from there. And I was there, they had a air show there when I was in the military, 100 Years of Aviation. And it was probably the greatest air show I ever went to in my entire life. It was phenomenal. They had
Hmm.
the Blue Angels and they had the Thunderbirds and they had the Snowbirds from Canada there all at one time. It was absolutely a phenomenal event. But we're not here to talk about that. Chris, you have done quite a few things militarily. Also, you have done things working with the United States military as a civilian, and then you have gone on to help civilians with what you are doing now. And could you explain to everybody exactly what you do at the now?
Yeah. So I'm in the corporate arena. I'm a president of a tech company in Houston. I do a lot of keynote speaking, executive coaching, and I write a lot of books. I just released a few months ago my 14th book, but that's over the course of 25 years. Um, Anything I do really has to pertain to mindset, improving performance or finding fulfillment through the vehicle of mindset. That's kind of the lane that I've lived in now for many years. I've spoken on mindset to over 60 countries. And I've learned that regardless of who you are or what you do, where you come from, our mindsets are all pretty much wired exactly the same. So I help people understand how that operating system works so that they can go in and change it, at the software level if they need to. And at the end of the day, just to live better, more fulfilling lives.
So when you talk about mindset, you're saying we all, I mean, sometimes there are people like the thing that comes out is like must be nice. But what you just said right there, and like if somebody's driving a nice car, somebody lives in a nice house, somebody has a great job, somebody just went and made a lot of money doing whatever it may be. There are a lot of people that sit there and say must be nice. What are one of the things that as a someone who deals with mindset a lot, what is something that individuals have in their mind that is actually an obstacle that they created?
Well, that's a great question. Most of the obstacles are actually created by the time we're 7 years old. And so there's, 95% of what goes on in our life goes on in the subconscious mind. And only 5% happens in the conscious mind. And that's where we're thinking about things. We're being creative. We're making decisions. But that operating system, called the unconscious or subconscious mind, is driving 95% of it. And if you want to go in and change your subconscious mind, you're going to have a real hard time doing it. And the reason is because there's this 7'2" bodyguard that weighs about 400 pounds that is guarding the gate. And it's called your creative faculty, or creative function or creative filter. There's a lot of different people that call it by different names, but or not. I'm sorry, not creative, critical. It's your
Okay.
critical, okay, faculty. And what it does is it stands at the gate, or the door. Imagine a big bouncer, and standing behind the red ropes, and you're trying to get into the VIP section, and it says, "No, you're not on the list." And it does that for a reason, because the subconscious likes patterns, it likes familiarity. Its job is to protect you. So it does not like change, it does not like anything unfamiliar. Well, up until you're about 7 years old, you really don't have a critical faculty. It's not developed yet. And it's not until about 7 that we finally get one. And that's when we start making decisions. I do like that. I don't like that. I don't want that. I like this kind of person. I'm going to sit with this, I'm going to sit with this group over here at the lunch table. It's about 7 that we do that. But we've had up until 7 years old to where we're just taking in the beliefs and the environment and the attitudes and the biases of everyone around us. We are absorbing our environment as absolute truth. And now all of a sudden we have this bodyguard guarding our subconscious mind, which is where we can actually make meaningful, lasting changes in our lives. But now we can't get access to it.
So you have a 7'2" bodyguard, and the funny thing is, I was sitting there thinking about times that I tried to get in and out of clubs back when I was younger, and clubs that I shouldn't have gone in. So what do? You number one, and again, the statute of limitations are over, so I can say this. You come up with fake IDs, or number two, you try to sweet talk the bouncer to get in. How does somebody? I mean, you see people.
I love that, by the way. Tudis, I got to say, I will be using that for the rest of my life. The people that try to get in with fake IDs, that is powerful, because that is usually our first default to try to get past the bouncer is with a fake ID. We try this mantra, we try this self-talk, we say something, do you know who I am? You don't know who I am. And that's usually our first default, is try to get in with a fake ID. I'll be using that for the rest of my speaking career. That's great.
You can, and just say this really cool looking guy in Asheville, North Carolina, said the fake ID thing. But how do you? Because you see people do great things, and they had to leave environments where, I don't want to call it sheltered environments or protective environments, but I just want to call it restrictive. Let's call it this way: restrictive environments. They leave in restrictive environments, whether it be physical or emotional or whatever, psychological. They leave these environments and they do fantastic things. Clearly, they have found a way around that 7'2" bodyguard.
Well, maybe. I mean, they might have found a way around it regarding performance, but they may go home and drink a fifth every night. I mean, there's a lot of people on the outside look like they figured it out. They made it out. They got it together. They made it to the top of the mountain when all their siblings did. And there's a lot of people that look like that. But at closer examination of their life behind closed doors, they might be on their 5th marriage. They might be addicted to opioids. So maybe they did, but we just can't look at external success, to make that determination.
What is the way, again, mindset important? What is the way that people who may have that restrictive mindset overcome that restrictive mindset and not go home and drink a fifth of vodka, or not go home and have imposter syndrome or whatever? What are ways to get around that?
Let's change the term from restrictive mindset to destructive mindset.
I like that. Okay.
Because it goes a lot more than just restricting your growth. It can destroy your future. I mean, you can look in the mirror one day and say, I'm 60 years old and my life did not turn out the way I had hoped. In fact, it doesn't look any different than it did this time last year at New Year's Eve. Well, that's destructive. Because our number one priority in our lifetime, our number one obligation is to basically develop ourselves to our fullest. That's what we are here to do. And then once we finally get there, or as we're on that path or that journey to getting there, our job is to make sure we bring along as many people as we can. We throw down the rope. We transcend the ego. We transcend the I. How many people can I help get to the top now that I've made it? And if we have a destructive mindset, we can't even keep our heads above water. So there's a couple of ways to do it, but they all really lead to the same path. The bottom line is, we've got these brain waves, and you've got alpha brain waves and beta and theta. And basically these brain waves, you're in one frame of mind when you're trying to problem solve. You're in one frame, your waves are different though when you're, kind of when you're just relaxing and watching a TV program and you're kind of tuned out, but you're wide awake. But the theta brain waves is where you need to be. And that is where you're not asleep, but you are awake, but you're not distracted. You're not problem solving. You're not having a conversation with someone. And theta, this is why hypnosis became really big. I don't know how long ago it was, but I remember when it started becoming very big, because they were claiming that through hypnosis, they were putting you in that theta wavelength, because when you're in theta, the bodyguard basically takes a nap. And so there's a couple of ways to do that. And that's when your subconscious becomes the most impressionable to new ideas, new suggestions. And so if you want to go in and program it, you got to wait until the bodyguard is on break. And the bodyguard is on break when you're in theta. And so one way people can do it, and I've never experienced this, so I'm not speaking from experience here, is hypnosis. I've never been hypnotized, and I don't have a desire to be hypnotized. And then the second one is through meditation. Well, I've tried to meditate. I don't have the patience for it, and I find it very uncomfortable. I'm sitting on the floor after 5 minutes, and I'm not thinking about my theta, anymore. I'm thinking about, is there a more comfortable chair? A third way that people do it is through NLP, right? And, which guys like Tony Robbins, kind of brought to the forefront, just because of his notoriety, but that neuro-linguistics programming, right? But in my opinion, nothing works best or better than what is called the state akin to sleep. And it's something that Neville Goddard came up with back in I'm going to guess, I think it was in the 50s, but don't quote me on that. But he basically said that the state akin to sleep is when you lay down to go to bed. You are intentionally going to go to sleep, and you know you're going to go to sleep. And from that moment until the time you go to sleep is when the bodyguard is gone, the theta wavelengths are active, and this is when you have the greatest chance. He called it the golden hour, to where you can make more change in your subconscious mind in that 5 minutes before you doze off than you can with 24 hours of affirmations and positive self-talk. And I have practiced it for years, and I'm telling you, it absolutely works. But it's not just before you go to sleep. It's right when you wake up also. Before you before you get out of bed and let the dog out and have the coffee, it's the same. So just imagine you got 5 minutes at night and 5 minutes in the morning, to where if you do this right, you can change your subconscious mind literally in the blink of an eye. I've never seen anything work faster than it. And but what you do is, so here is what the subconscious mind responds to very well. Okay, it loves repetition. It loves anything that is emotionally charged. So any feeling or thought that has emotion to it. Okay. So that's why people just walking around saying, I am a millionaire. I am healthy. I am fit. I am loved by my friends and family. If there's no emotion behind it, the subconscious mind sees it as a fake ID. All right. Because it doesn't even believe what you're saying, and it doesn't know the difference between truth and reality. The subconscious mind doesn't. It only takes you literally. But you got that critical faculty there that's going, okay, I call BS on that. None of that's true. You're definitely not getting in. So what we do is we create a goal, and let's say the goal is, and this is not a goal of mine, but I think it's apropos for what we're talking about. Let's say my goal is to create my own podcast one day, which it isn't. And I want it to be a top 100 ranked podcast, kind of like a Joe Rogan level, Mel Robbins level podcast. And that becomes this goal of mine. And so what you would do is when you lay down at night in that state akin to sleep, I basically go through this mental rehearsal, something that I've created. I literally, during the day, like I thought it out. I wrote it out. Okay, what would it look like if I achieved that goal? And so you're looking at it as an observer. You're watching yourself go through the action of something that would only happen if you had achieved a top 100 ranked podcast. and you're watching yourself. I mean, you know what you're wearing, you know who's in the room, you know who, and so like, let's just say I'm interviewing someone really famous who would never be on my podcast, you know, unless I was top ranked, right? So let's just say I'm interviewing Denzel Washington on my podcast, and I see in that imagery, I see my name, you know, the Chris Harris, whatever, behind me in neon lights. And so every night before I go to sleep, I just replay that for a few minutes until I doze off. And you have to understand a couple of really important truths about the subconscious mind. It only takes you literally. It doesn't know the truth between, or the difference between a lie and the truth. It doesn't know the difference between fantasy and reality. It has no idea. It's a computer, is what it really is. And you're reprogramming it. And so now you've got the emotional charge, because it's me smiling in my mind. I'm smiling because I see that I'm interviewing Denzel Washington on my podcast. Right. And what happens? So there's repetition because I do it every night. And then it's emotionally charged because I'm watching it from the end result. And then the last thing it loves is imagery. It just loves images. So I've got the image part there too. And you do that every night and every morning, or just every night, but you're consistent with it. You do it every night. Like when you know it's time to get ready to go to bed, you're like, oh, it's about time to run the tapes. And that is a phenomenal way, without getting hypnotized, without having to sit in the, you know, crisscross applesauce position and meditate for 20 minutes every day. It is in my opinion, the best way to get there.
Well, you know what? I'm going to tell you, I'm going to start doing that. And I am going to sit there and say on my podcast, which is pretty good. All right. It's not Joe Rogan level yet. It will be soon. But instead of wanting to interview Denzel Washington, I would love to. It'd be great. But before I go to bed at night, from now on, I'm going to say, I'm going to interview Sade on my program.
Okay.
I'm going to say that from now on. And when Sade comes on this program, and if you're listening right now, Sade, I do want you on my program. I am going to make sure I'm going to credit Chris Harris because I got Sade on my program, and that is, you know, but that was all joking aside. That was it is very interesting because I'm like you. I cannot. My wife tells you need to meditate. You got too much going on. You need to sit and meditate. I'm not doing it. I can't do it. I don't know how to do it. Whatever. It's just not in my cards. But that is great because that is something that, you know, in order for you to live, you have to sleep anyway. You might as well utilize that time and utilize it to the best. So, like, you know, right before you go to bed, like you said, get the tapes ready. You know, get the streaming, you know, for the younger people. I know you guys probably don't even know what a tape is, but get the streaming service ready in your mind to get it ready to go and start streaming those thoughts, start streaming those ideas. It is really good. And it's funny how we don't use fake ID, but just wait for the bouncer to walk away because he's going to have to go to the bathroom sometime, and this is the best time to do it, you know. And that is a fantastic thing. So,
and let me
go ahead.
Let me add one piece to that. When you are visualizing, you know, this moment of you interviewing her, imagine what you're wearing. Imagine what she's wearing, and make sure that every night before you go to sleep, it's the same image replayed, because we need repetition. And I would even do something that like, what is your favorite song of hers? Is it Ordinary Love, or, you know, whatever. But imagine what the song that she sings that is your favorite song. Imagine that she sings that live a cappella, you know, and she's up against the mic and you're listening to her sing that on your show. Anything that adds more charged emotion, the faster it happens. And then I will tell you this: if I'm having a rough day, and if I'm working from home or I'm working somewhere where I can go back to the hotel, if I'm having a rough day and I can feel like my mindset's just struggling because of what's going on, I will intentionally go take a 20-minute nap for one reason. So I can play my tape.
Reset. That's beautiful. That is a great thing. That is a great thing. Now, you have worked with special forces. You've worked with the United States 25 years. You've worked with the military. Is this the type of stuff that you do with individuals? And again, like I said, if you can't say what you do, that's fine. But is this the type of exercise? Are these the similar exercises that you do with that?
No, I can tell you that what I taught to military special forces as a private contractor um, was very niche. It was close quarters combat, but it was very niche. It wasn't your standard, block, kick, punch. And now, obviously, there was a lot of mindset
Absolutely, yeah.
that was rolled into everything that I taught. But my specialty was if they needed the skill set at a very high level very quickly, which means that muscle memory is not going to work. You're not going to have someone come in for a 4-week course or 6-week course, get the 6-man team ready for this specific mission. It's not going to happen. What I was the guy that would come in and do something if it was very mission specific, out in the middle of nowhere, some forward operating base. And most of the time, I didn't even know what the mission was, but I was a reflex arc guy. Okay. So reflex arc is basically when we don't have time for muscle memory. We need this information, the skill set uploaded into the central hard drive very quickly, meaning that I was going to create new involuntary reactions that did not require their permission. And once it's an involuntary reaction, the only way they're ever going to lose it, like they don't have to practice it. The only way they're ever going to lose that involuntary reaction is if someone comes in and intentionally trains it out of them. And it's a lot harder to remove an involuntary reaction than it is to add one. And the way that I would do that is I would couple multiple different learning styles. So anyone that you've got in a room, if you've got a 6-man team of operators in a room, every one of them, is going to learn, through visual, through kinesthetic, through audible, but they're all going to have a dominant. Okay. And you don't know who's got what dominant. So what you do is when you transfer the information, you make sure that you're including all the learning styles and emotional based learning, by the way. All of them are included, is that technique is being transferred, and that's what puts it into the new involuntary reflex arc right away. You got to have all of the learning styles combined in the way the information is transferred. So my deal was I could come in and I could do it really quick.
So you deal with I shouldn't say you deal with, you work with a lot of corporations and things like that when it comes to mindset. You work with the special forces and this and the other. Individuals, do individuals come and seek your coaching and your assistance? I don't want to say coaching, but your practice.
They do, but I don't do individual. I don't work with individuals anymore. I work with teams, like sales teams. I work with executive teams. The reason I stopped doing the one-on-one individual coaching is because there's no accountability. If somebody says, "Hey, this is my desired outcome, and I know this is your hourly rate, and I'm going to pay it," and then we've got a call scheduled once a week, let's say for 10 weeks, as we go through this journey to getting them where they want to be, and I give them this homework or this assignment, and I say, "All right, based, last week I told you that, blah, 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 and you agreed to have that or this prepared by this call. Tell me what you got." Yeah, someone got sick, or, someone, at work went on PTO and I had to fill it. And it's all the reasons why they didn't do it. And there was no mechanism for me to hold them accountable. And so, I pride myself on a job well done. If you pay me money to get you to a desired outcome, either a problem you're trying to solve or a benefit, your advantage you're trying to gain, at the end of that time, I want to see you there. But if I can't hold you accountable and you don't have the self-discipline or the self-motivation to do it, then at the end of the day, all I'm going to get is a bad review, and I'm going to feel like I shortchanged you. And that's not good for me, and it's not good for business. So the thing with executive leadership teams or with sales teams, if you're on a sales team, you've got a VP of sales who basically probably took money out of his or her budget to pay for this. And at the end of every call, I'm just sending an email saying, "Hey, just a matter of fact, here's who was ready and here's who wasn't. Here was who was prepared and here's who wasn't." And that just knocks that nonsense off real quick. So that was the reason I got away from the personal stuff, just because there was just no leverage points.
Okay. Excellent. Chris, thank you so much for being a part of this program. I'm going to tell you, the audience, that Chris's contact information, his website, everything will be in the podcast notes. I have learned, I learn a lot from a lot of podcast guests that I have on. I leave this podcast as the host of the podcast. I leave this podcast honestly, I've learned something today, and I absolutely appreciate it. And obviously, I will be going out there. I know you have 14 books. I have skimmed through one, but I'm going to go through a lot of them. And I do absolutely appreciate your time, Chris. Thank you
And
for being a part of this program. I will
and
say this. Go ahead, please.
everything that we talked about regarding mindset today is in my latest book, The Book of Mindset.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And don't forget, go out, get the book of mindset. It again, what we've talked about today is something that is, again, it's always been a shortcoming of mine as far as when it comes to meditation and things like that. And there you go. And I'm going to be honest with you. I mean, the way you said that, the way that went, it makes 100% sense that you are literally playing that in your mind, and you are guiding yourself and training yourself to do, and really I don't want to say manifest, that's the wrong word, but you are working to make what you dream, and literally almost very close to what you dream, very possible. Thank you very much for being on the podcast, Chris. We will be right back.
Every story begins with a truth. Some stories are meant to inspire. Some are meant to heal. All deserve to be heard. At Veritas Publishing House, we bring truth to life through the written word. At Veritas, we guide authors from vision to visibility with purpose, planning, passion, and persistence. This is more than just publishing. It's legacy. Veritas Publishing House, publishing truth, inspiring purpose.
Welcome back to the 4Ps podcast. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. I hope it changes your thought, your way of thinking. And also, by the way, I am serious. I used to go to bed dreaming about Sade anyway, so I might as well just go ahead and make it work, right? So she is a phenomenal artist. She's probably one of my, if not my favorite singer of all time. So Sade, if you are listening to this, seriously, I don't care who comes on the show. All right, the Pope can say, I want to be on the 4Ps podcast. And Sade says she wants to be on the 4Ps podcast. I bet you I won't even have to flip a coin to say who's going to be on my podcast first. It will definitely be Sade. I'm sorry, Pope Leo, but it's Sade, okay? And it's just like I've liked her since I was like 14. And I'm 55 and still like her. So anyway, going off on that, and I'm very sorry. But if you listen to what Chris Harris had to say, a lot of times most of the time, the biggest obstacle to achieving your goals, to moving forward, is right up here. It's you. It's not anybody else. It's not anything else. It's not anybody else. It is absolutely you. And I'm saying you as far as I'm pointing to myself too. It's me. Those are the things that stop us from going. One thing I do love about this, and I can't meditate to save my life. If you guys knew me in real life, and some of you guys do know me in real life who listen to this podcast, you know that I'm constantly thinking, constantly moving, constantly doing something, and I can't. I don't even know how I sleep sometimes. But I will say this, when I do get up, it's up, I'm done. Okay, but I love that situation, that piece of time when you're almost asleep. And I'm going to start doing that. I'm going to start playing those tapes in my head. I'm going to start getting prepared. And every single day, and I'm going to see how that works, how that changes your mindset. A lot of times we don't do things because of ourselves. Again, going back to what I said in the very beginning of this podcast about bats, there's no reason for me to be afraid of bats. So maybe, and I don't have time to do this right now, I'll just be scared of bats for a little while longer. But seriously, if I start doing that at night, maybe I won't be scared of bats anymore. Don't know. But those are things that you could do. Remember, your mind. You have a big 7'2", I don't know how many, 300 and some odd pound bouncer that's standing right at the gate of your mind. and you've got to get around that person. And you don't want to use a fake ID. Trust me, you do not want to use a fake ID. And you want to get around that bouncer for sure. Next week, we are going to have Jerome Myers, who's going to be on our podcast. And then the following week, we are actually totally going to change our podcast background, our setup. I know a couple days ago, last week we had Steve Tolan and we had a different background because I was somewhere else. Next time I'm going to be way somewhere else. I will be in Australia, so I'm going to record a couple of podcasts while I'm down there. I'll be down there for 2.5 weeks, and I'll be probably recording 3 or 4 podcasts. So you're going to have about 4 podcasts in a row that will be in different parts. Sydney, Hobart, you name it. Well, I don't want to say you name it because I'm only going to be in Sydney and Hobart. So I'm not going to say you name it because you're like, well, you said you were going to be you name it, and I thought you were going to be in Brisbane. I'm not going to be in Brisbane. I am going to be in Sydney, and I'm going to be in Hobart. I'm going to go to Tasmania. There are going to be a lot of special things going on in Tasmania. Please watch the podcast. Get on the 4Ps Facebook account. Please get on the 4Ps Facebook account. Follow the 4Ps Facebook account. Please follow the YouTube account. All those other things, please. We're going to have a lot of fun. A lot of changes going on with the 4Ps podcast. A lot of changes going on with the 4Ps. A lot of things going on. A lot of things. And just want you to be a part of it. So like I said, next week, a matter of fact, right after this podcast is up and filmed, I am going to the airport. And right now, if you are in the United States, that is one of the crappiest things to do is be in an airport here right now. And one thing I do want to say, all politics aside, all right, to the TSA workers who are working right now without pay, you're heroes. You are absolutely 100% heroes. And you know what? I saw just a couple days in the news that there was a TSA worker that was punched by somebody for some reason. Okay? You do not friggin' deserve that. All right? You're heroes. You're not getting paid. And I'm going to tell you why you're not getting paid. I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat. Our politicians, the people who are working for us, can't even tie their own shoes. I don't care who it is, and if you support them, I don't give a shit because they are horrible. I have not seen a dysfunctional government in my life just like this. I love the United States of America, and I'm always proud. As a matter of fact, I'm wearing the American flag right here. Love this country. I am very disappointed in what we've been doing, and now as a result, people who are making $45,000, $50,000 a year, maybe, are not even getting paychecks. And that is bullshit. And I think that us as the American people need to hold them. We're 250 years. And we used to hold people accountable, and I think we need to start doing that more often now instead of sitting there blaming one side or the other. It's both sides. Both sides are dysfunctional as hell. So I want to say to the TSA workers, thank you for everything you do. You are absolutely total heroes. And like I said, I know I'm going to wait in line for 4 or 5 hours. But when I see that TSA employee, if I can, because I'm not going to sit there and violate anything, I will be happy to shake your hand and say thank you for your service. Until next week, like I said, Jerome Myers next week. We will be talking to you soon. Until then, bye-bye.